Brought to you by ExpressCare Health and Skin Center. Get in, get out, get better.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are talking about breastfeeding and the benefits that it has for both the child and the mother. And joining me now is ExpressCare's Dr. Jitka Lom, who's ready to answer some of our viewers' questions. All right, so our first viewer wants to know, how do you know if your baby is getting enough breast milk? I know that was the question that I had all the time.
Yeah, everyone has that question, because how do you tell? Your baby can't talk, and baby's crying, and maybe they're crying because they're hungry, and maybe not. You really can't tell. The way you really can tell is if you weigh the baby. So at home you can weigh yourself with the baby and then you without the baby and so on, and subtract, and you can do that, or with a baby scale. And you know, that's the best measurement of how the baby's doing. Otherwise, of course, monitoring to see if the baby seems hungry or not. Most of us overfeed our babies because we're so worried about them. We like them pokey and chunky.
I'm guilty.
Yeah, and we overfeed. And there's, you know, it's much easier to get the milk out of a bottle than it is to get it out of a breast. You have to work a lot harder as a child to suckle than it is to, you know, bottle feed. So it's easier for them to get a big load of nutrition from a bottle than from a breast. They get chubby.
Yes,
so,
I think that was my,
yeah.
That's what happened to mine. Every time my child cried, like, first response is, are you hungry?
Yes, and that's a natural thing for us moms. So understanding that your body is made to feed the child, and your body knows what to do and the child knows what to do, and trusting a little bit and being a little bit patient. That's hard for us, but being a little bit patient and waiting to see how the baby's doing. If your baby isn't gaining enough weight, then you really have to supplement. But there's a clever way you can do that without bottle feeding. You can take the bottle and attach a little catheter, a thin little tube, which you can purchase in a medical supply store. It's only like maybe 5 millimeters. It's just really, really thin, tiny, tiny little tube. It's like a straw. You put one end in the bottle and the other end you tape to your breast right beside your nipple. And then the baby sucks on your breast, but it's also getting a little bit of bottle milk. Wow. So that is something that we can do so that we don't completely switch over.
Oh, wow. I wish I thought of that.
Well, it's something that they do teach in, when the lactation specialists come and teach you that, so that you can at least continue to try to breastfeed.
All right, and our next viewer is asking, my doctor says that I'm suffering from postpartum depression and I need to start taking medication for it. Do I have to stop breastfeeding my baby?
No, you don't, and it's a shame, but it's good that you got diagnosed and that you're dealing with the postpartum depression. It's usually due to a huge hormone shift. The medicine is safe for you, and I don't think most people would say they would say to continue breastfeeding. It's okay for you. Depending on which medication you're on, most of the time it's okay. You could also pump and, you know, try to go to therapy and so on, and then minimize the use of medicine. But medicine really does help postpartum depression, so sometimes you just have to take it and your baby will be okay. It's very tiny amounts that go through the breast milk.
All right, now our next viewer is asking, how many times, or is there a yield as to how many times my baby should be fed a day?
No, some babies feed all day long, don't they?
They do.
It's just on demand.
Yes.
That's the hard part. You know, we like to put everybody on a schedule, like, baby, you're going to eat now and they sleep now. That's not how babies work. So it's on-demand feeding when you're breastfeeding. Bottle feeding, you're able to do a bit of a schedule, but not breastfeeding. Sometimes they get a lot, sometimes they don't, sometimes they'll burp, sometimes they'll fall asleep while they're on the breast. So it's just whatever they want. They're the boss.
Yes, and I remember in the first few weeks after delivery, there is something called engorgement. And at those times, it's like, come here and you need to feed.
And that's when you need that breast pump to relieve some of that pressure. Some women have the opposite pressure problem of too much breast milk and engorgement. So relieving that, getting that off yourself with the breast pump, and you can freeze breast milk and use it later on. Another way is to just massage it with hot water in the shower to get some of that milk out, but it can be very painful and then lead to infection. That's called mastitis, and then you wouldn't be able to breastfeed. So better you get rid of that extra breast milk that way.
All right, now our next viewer is asking, at what age should I start to wean my baby off breast milk? Because we were just talking about this in the break, and my little sister, she's probably going to kill me for letting this out on air, but she breastfed until she was 4 years old.
It's true. I feel like a rule of thumb is if they can talk, then maybe you should stop breastfeeding. But, you know, it's a natural, healthy thing at that age. They're no longer getting any nutrition from that. It's just the comfort and the bonding. But the rule of thumb is try to get to a year. It's very hard, especially if you're working, to get to a year of breastfeeding. And if you do, congratulations. I know you did, so good job. But the more you do it, the better it is for the baby. So this is not to beat anybody up. It's just to encourage them and say, please try your hardest to extend to a year.
All right. Our next viewer says, I'm an expectant mother. Is there anything I should do to prepare for breastfeeding?
Well, you know, I think as far as the nipples, you can condition your nipples a little bit. You don't want to overstimulate or anything during pregnancy because it can cause cramps. But just gently lubricating and massaging your nipples with a little bit of lotion so that they're soft, that's a good thing to do. Otherwise, just mentally preparing yourself for the on-demand feeding. I think so. That's about it.
And I think, like, for me, every single pregnancy that I've been through and I breastfed all my children, I always went through the engorgement and then also the cracked nipples.
Yes, it's so painful. The cracked nipples, you know, there are different creams, the lanolin and so on, that you can use on the cracked nipples. They can be incredibly painful. Sometimes there's a yeast infection too that happens, so that's treatable. If you're having breast nipple pain, please see your doctor so they can give you something for that and get through it. And that's a time where you might have to pump for a while because the pumping doesn't hurt the nipple quite as much, but it's a real sacrifice.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's all we have. When we're back, we'll be wrapping up the show.